of a forest. All the trees you see, we planted 10 years ago. It had been an abandoned coffee plantation, and there was some people growing corn, so there was not much alive. So now we planted these trees, and you can see below is the first cardamom plantation we made maybe 9 years ago. All these trees, they're really tall. You can see they're kind of thin. Their leaf and branches are starting to touch each other, so that there is not much light coming in below in the second story. So in this case here, this is too much shade for much things. But it's also too much competition for the trees. In a normal forest, you can see a tree every many meters in general, room in between them. So this is what we're gonna have to create. We planted these trees really close to one another, so that eventually, as time goes by, we have to do what is called a thinning. The thinning is a very important process. When we plant the trees close to one another, we can create a bit of competition between them. As they grow in their first meters, they start feeling that there is neighbors around them, and they start growing rather taller than wider. This is what we want in this case with the tropical woods we're planting. Second, as they grow and they compete with each other, they create shade, and by creating shade they reduce the amount of work, because they reduce the amount of undergrowth plants that are growing. Here we decided to just plant the trees because in many places there was coffee. And the coffee we pruned. We planted rows of trees, and as the coffee was growing back, the trees were growing, providing a bit of shade, so we could harvest some coffee for a few years till the shade grew and was too much for coffee. Then we came to this time where the trees were kind of big, like now, and we have to do the thinning. So this is another reason to plant many trees, because you have only one chance to plant them for a long time, and it's nice to be able to select them. These three ones, they're pretty big, but they make a lot of shade, and up there they're competing. So it's a sign they're competing in the soil, and they're the same species. So I'm gonna remove one of the three. 12 years ago, there was coffee here, rows of coffee. We came, planted these trees, these guys, maybe 8 years ago. We pruned the coffee, we planted those guys, the coffee grew, the trees grew, and after a few years, that was the good time to plant the cardamom. Cardamom is good because it grows in the shade, it likes a lot of shade. It's a cash crop that is permitted in this reforestation program which we are part of. Likes the shade and gives us organic matter as it grows and develops. Cardamom gave us the incentive to maintain the trees, because we were maintaining this cash crop that was giving us some cash flow, some products yearly as we were maintaining this. As we planted the cacao a year or two ago, we also planted the ground cover. This one is called Arachis pintoi. I think it's false peanut in English. It's a nitrogen fixer that covers the ground and prevents other weeds from growing much taller. So we like that a lot because it reduces the amount of work we have to do and is still good for the soil. When we were talking about water and about the soil, it's important to understand that they both work together. Water in the soil is very important, but too much water on a steep hill will take the soil away. Here what we do is to build an individual terrace of about 1 square meter that helps us slow down the water, a place to put some compost or other soil amendments, a place where we can stand and prune the cacao, and then little by little we're gonna make tiny path from one to the other as we go putting some of our fertilizer, so that we can go from one tree to the other, and it also slows down the water and it helps us for absorption of the fertilizer. So basically when we do a work, we try to make it useful in many different aspects. We in general never do something for only one thing. It has to fit many other aspects of the project so that it becomes worth it.